Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Price Check, your sports podcast brought to you by the In the Zone Network, where we go city to city, state to state, worldwide. Week 2 officially in the books for the NFL. We had some things that were predictable based on what we saw in week 1, and we had some things that went completely the opposite direction based on what we saw the prior week, but that's the world of football for you. So go ahead and jump in, man. Of course, actually got a really good Monday night football game last night. Entertaining nonetheless. Probably not the outcome that we expected. Had a Falcons comeback in that one, down at a couple different points in that game, but ultimately come back on a final drive by Kirk Cousins, which of course I didn't have on my bingo card. I bet against the Falcons last night, so thanks a lot, Kirk Cousins. But the Falcons win that game 22-21 behind that final drive. Touchdown pass from Kirk Cousins to Drake London to cap off the comeback. And some questionable play calling, clock management from the Eagles that led to this. So, they had the ball, could have run the clock out if they just run the ball on third down with Saquon Barkley instead of throwing the ball, which of course he ultimately dropped. Pass that was very catchable. He dropped that one. Could have went ahead and iced the clock down, but did not do so. Falcons get the ball back down 6, go ahead, drive, get the touchdown and the extra point to win it. So Falcons move to 1-1. Eagles drop to 1-1. And now we, of course, are going to start looking ahead to week 3. But before we do so, got to give some takeaways from the week that we just watched. Now, 2 words that can describe this week 2 here in the NFL. The first one being injuries. We saw a lot of our bigger stars in the league either leave a game with an injury and, kind of have some diagnosis that we're looking into going into next week, or just outright got injured and are going to miss some time. So, of course, we came into the week after Monday Night Football last week with the 49ers, knowing that Christian McCaffrey was dealing with a little bit of an Achilles injury in addition to the calf injury that was noted on the injury report. He's now since been moved to injured reserve. So he's on IR, has to miss at least the next 4 weeks. Probably looking at, a little bit of an uncertain time frame beyond that 4 weeks for him dealing with that injury. But 49ers, of course, solid at running back. But have another injury to keep an eye out on for them. Calf strain for Deebo Samuel for the 49ers as well. He's going to be missing some time here, at least sometimes a few weeks is the timeline they're kind of giving us. So definitely going to be tough sledding for that offense here without both CMC and Deebo. But the 49ers, of course, they will kind of look to rebound here next week against another injured team in the Rams. Rams, at this point, they have now Puka Nacua, who was already moved to injured reserve last week. I think about 4 of their offensive linemen now are either on injured reserve or looking at a possible injured reserve stint. And to top that all off, they went and got embarrassed in Arizona and, of course, lose Cooper Kupp in that game. He went out with an ankle injury, was in a walking boot after the game, looking at a possible IR stint for him as well. So it's not looking good at all for the Rams, just injury after injury, and at some point it's going to be too much to come back from, especially now with this 0-2 start. You have Isaiah Pacheco, who left the Chiefs game on Sunday. He's going to miss 6 to 8 weeks now with a broken fibula. They're looking at possible running back options there, even a possible reunion with Kareem Hunt, who was there prior to being suspended by the NFL and then ultimately signed by the Cleveland Browns. So you had those injuries. Amon-Ra St. Brown left his game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the Lions on Sunday. Doesn't appear to be a serious injury, looking like some cramping mixed with a little bit of a contusion, but should ultimately be fine. Possibly will even play this upcoming Sunday at Arizona. And then Justin Jefferson also left the game against the 49ers on Sunday. Looking like, I guess day-to-day, week-to-week type of thing, but not a serious injury for him either. And then, of course, Monday Night Football game last night, you had A.J. Brown miss that one. He's going to be out some time here. And then Joe Mixon, of course, left the Texans game on Sunday Night Football with an ankle injury. He's possibly looking at a few weeks sidelined with injury. And then, of course, the biggest injury storyline of the entire week took place, of course, way back on Thursday Night Football. But Tua Tagovailoa for the Miami Dolphins left that game with a concussion. Pretty scary sight for him. Of course, we know he's dealt with these concussions here in the last couple years and had some bigger hits and things that he's taken and displayed some concussion symptoms on the field multiple times now on national television, which of course has the national media, sports media, talking about whether or not he should retire, things like that. We won't get into all of that for Tua. Of course, he's his own human. He's his own man. If he wants to continue playing football, it's his prerogative to do so, regardless of the injury history. But definitely a scary sight for him with the fencing reaction as far as the hands and posture and things on the field. So a lot of injuries, of course, across week 2. So a number of different ways that they may affect some of these teams, not only in week 3 but moving forward. The other word that we have to describe week 2 this week: underdog. Not sure, of course, if you guys pay attention to the betting lines and things like that, but just going against the spread this week, underdogs were 12-4 against the spread. And then you had 9 of those 12 teams win those games outright. So underdogs won big this week. Typically, something that we see a lot of in week 2 across the history of the league in previous years, where teams that maybe had a rough week 1 come into these week 2 games as underdogs, but probably not indicative of their actual stature or their stance on the field. So had a lot of underdogs win this week. Not sure if that'll continue at that trend. Definitely don't think it will, but definitely a week if you bet the underdogs, you probably won pretty big this past Sunday and even last night with the Falcons winning outright as well. So underdogs, injuries, biggest storylines of the week. Now, I'm going to move into some teams and the actual results of it. You're looking at a lot of teams on opposite ends of the spectrum here in the NFL, right? 9 teams that moved to 2-0 this week. You also got 9 teams at 0-2. Now, biggest thing that you want to keep in mind here for teams that are 0-2 coming out of week 2 in the NFL. Since they've moved to a 17-game season, there have been 21 teams that have gone 0-2 to start the season. Only 3 of those teams have made the playoffs. You kind of got to get out the gates at least 500 or better if you really want to solidify yourself a chance at a playoff run. Now, some notable teams that dropped to 0-2 this week. You had the Baltimore Ravens losing a crazy game. A game they were up 10 points pretty deep into the fourth quarter of that one. Ended up losing that one at home against the Raiders. And then, of course, you had the Bengals lose on the road in Arrowhead against the Kansas City Chiefs. I know a lot of people are going to be talking about the pass interference call that didn't go their way on 4th down in the fourth quarter, but all in all, they're 0-2 starting the season again for the second straight year. Not really liking what I see out of the Bengals, but I think their schedule is going to allow for them to kind of make up for some of that ground. Now, I bring up the Ravens and Bengals together because, of course, if there's going to be one of these, 0-2 teams that can make a playoff run, right, who could it possibly be? Now, the Bengals, one of the 3 teams that have made the playoffs after starting 0-2 since the NFL went to that 17-game season. And they kind of have the schedule, at least to right the ship here over the next couple weeks. They've got the Washington Commanders here on Monday Night Football in week 3, and then they follow that up with a trip to Carolina in week 4. So looking like they can probably rebound and win 2 games and get back to 500. Now, the Ravens, on the other hand, they have the Cowboys game that they have to go to Dallas for here in week 3, and then they're home for the Bills in week 4 before week 5 matchup against the Bengals. So if you're looking at, believing in an 0-2 team here, I would probably take my chance with one of those 2, but that week 5 matchup that they have is going to be really, really critical for one of those teams moving forward, because the team that loses, depending on what happens here over the course of these next couple games, specifically for the Ravens here, they drop one of these next 2 against Dallas or Buffalo, and then, of course, ultimately lose that game against Cincinnati. That might be the season for them. So definitely keep an eye out on some of those 0-2 teams. Now, flip side of this, of course, you got the teams that are 2-0. Now, you got a few surprises in there, like the Chargers, the Steelers, but you also got some usual suspects as well. Texans, Chiefs, Bills, all 2-0. Now, you also have the Saints and Buccaneers, both in the NFC South, who are 2-0. A couple reasons why those surprised me a little bit. Tampa Bay, of course, dealing with some injuries on the defensive side of the ball now. That may even itself out here over the course of the season. Maybe they kind of come back to the pack a little bit after this 2-0 start, but I do think they have the offensive firepower to be able to keep this thing moving. Now, we talked about injuries. They also lost Rashad White to an injury here during the game on Sunday against Detroit. Unsure of what his status is going to be over the next couple weeks here, but we'll keep an eye out on that for Tampa. And then the Saints, man, this is a completely new team or new offense than what we've seen from them in previous seasons. They're letting the ball fly down the field with Derek Carr. Rashid Shaheed has been all over the place. A couple long touchdowns here to start the season each game here, both week 1 against the Carolina Panthers and this week against the Dallas Cowboys. And then, of course, Alvin Kamara still doing Alvin Kamara things. He had a crazy game, 180 total yards on Sunday against Dallas with 4 touchdowns. So, if you're talking about maybe, one of these 2-0 teams might be a pretender. Of course, I mentioned AFC, you got Chargers and Steelers, where they actually play each other here in week 3. One of those two teams probably going to take a little bit of a step back. Now, the Chargers, of course, they've looked like a much improved team with Jim Harbaugh as their new head coach. But they've also played the Raiders and the Panthers in these first 2 games. Definitely want to see how it continues to play out for them as they face some tougher competition as the season goes on. And the Steelers, of course, they've played, Steeler football, essentially. Keep these games low scoring, let the defense hold things down, and then, of course, just get enough points offensively to close it out. But the quarterback play, of course, Justin Fields, and whether or not we see Russell Wilson, that's going to be the biggest question mark for them moving forward and whether or not they can keep things going here. But definitely a benefit for them right now that both the Ravens and Bengals are 0-2 in that division. And, of course, Cleveland, they won their game on Sunday, but Deshaun Watson has looked a little bit shaky here at different points in the first 2 games as well. So definitely a little bit more belief for me in the Steelers than the Chargers. If we're taking a look at some of those NFC teams, of course, Vikings are actually 2-0, which with Sam Darnold, the quarterback, I might not buy that quite as much, but as long as Justin Jefferson does not have a lengthy injury that he's going to have to deal with, I do think they can kind of stay in the mix in the NFC North, especially now with Jordan Love missing some time for Green Bay as well. So if there's any one of these teams that I think I have to list as a possible pretender at 2-0, maybe it's the Vikings again with Sam Darnold at quarterback, but I think all in all, these teams kind of have a real good shot at the very least, being wild card teams if they don't win their divisions after the 2-0 starts. So, also have to touch on a couple things here as relates to quarterback play throughout the league. We mentioned Tua's injury. He's gone down. They're going to have Skylar Thompson at quarterback for Miami. They also just picked up Tyler Huntley off the Ravens practice squad here to start the week. We'll see how that QB situation plays out there and how long Tua's actually out. And then, of course, you have Bryce Young get benched in Carolina. Andy Dalton going to start the week 3 game for them moving forward. And I guess moving forward, he's going to be the starter until they kind of feel like they see what they need to see from Bryce Young. Part of that Bryce Young benching, of course, is his play. Has not looked great on the field here, not even just these first 2 games this year, but in his entire season last year. And then, part of the blame, of course, has to go to the Panthers. We talked about the Panthers being one of the stinky teams this year. We'll mention betting against them again here a little bit later in the show. But, of course, we mentioned also last week picking against some teams, picking some bets. The Chargers beating the Panthers was our only bet of our money line parlay to come through. So, unfortunately, we lost that one. But the read was correct as far as the Panthers go. This is not a team that is going to be very good moving forward, regardless of who their quarterback is. So I think Bryce Young is definitely going to have some things to learn, try to get back on the field. But all in all, I think that Panthers situation is a lot more messy beyond just the quarterback situation. So now, to look ahead to week 3. Some very interesting games on the slate here for week 3. Now, of course, Thursday Night Football kicks us off. You got Jets, Patriots to start the week. Now, betting wise, I'm probably not putting a single dollar on this game. I do want to see, though, what Aaron Rodgers continues to look like. He had a little bit of a better showing against the Tennessee Titans here this Sunday as the Jets got their first win of the season. But all in all, it's not the like juggernaut offense that the Jets may have been hoping for when Aaron Rodgers initially signed there last season. So, I think this Patriots team is frisky. They had a close game against the Seattle Seahawks at home on Sunday, a game that they ultimately lost in overtime, but definitely a game that they had been in throughout the entire four quarters leading up to overtime. And then, of course, they won the game against Cincinnati in week 1. So, this Patriots team, they're not extremely good, but they are tough. They know how to play good defense. They're going to, play some ball control style offense. So let's see how that might match up against the Jets. Now, of course, the question mark for them is who's going to get open against that Jets secondary. Not sure, but of course the secondary hasn't looked quite as dominant. They've let up quite a few points here, both against the 49ers in week 1 on Monday Night Football, as well as this game Sunday against the Titans. Now, again, not betting anything on that game. I imagine it's probably going to come down like field goal, 4-point type of situation. Now, if you are hearing me say that and you like the points, maybe you take the Patriots. I don't know, but again, I'm not betting it at all. Now, for my money, best early game on the Sunday slate, Texans at Vikings. Now, we mentioned both of these teams coming to the game 2-0. I would assume, at least right now, that Justin Jefferson plays. And if he does, I think this one could shape up to be a pretty good matchup here overall. Two teams that are used to playing in a dome. You're going to probably see some points scored in this one. Also, you get to see Stephon Diggs go back to Minnesota to play his former team. So, not really sure on a winner in that one. I think I probably would lean Texans, but I think that's going to be a fun game to watch. And then, of course, I think the most fun game to watch out of the late slate, we mentioned it a little bit here in talking about the Ravens. You got Ravens versus Cowboys Sunday afternoon in Dallas. Ravens team that's desperate at 0-2, a Cowboys team that is coming off a terrible loss against the Saints. Of course, they gave up 44 points in that when the defense was not able to find any answers whatsoever against that Saints offense. So Cowboys, of course, got some questions to answer. Ravens got some questions to answer. I think the desperation out of both of those teams is going to lead to some really good football come Sunday afternoon. I'm going to lean Ravens in that one. But, the way that the Ravens have, looked in terms of their offensive line, definitely shaky there. Their defense is just not stopping anybody at the rate that they were able to last year. And I think that's going to be a tough thing to deal with, especially when you talk about, they were missing Nate Wiggins here this past week against the Las Vegas Raiders. Hopefully, of course, he's able to return to play, but they're going to need that against CeeDee Lamb and the Dallas Cowboys. So with lean Ravens, again, due to the desperation, but I think all in all, that one's going to be a really good game to watch come Sunday. Now, Sunday Night Football matchup for us is Chiefs versus Falcons. Falcons surprised us, of course, with the Monday Night Football result, but I do think, Patrick Mahomes and that the Chiefs offense is definitely going to be a lot for them to handle. Give me the Chiefs in that one. I feel pretty confident about that one. I don't know that, the Falcons are going to be able to come off of a short week and be able to keep that momentum going. Especially, Kirk Cousins looked a little bit better last night, but still a little bit limited mobility-wise. So give me the Chiefs against the Falcons on Sunday Night Football. And then, of course, we somehow managed to find ourselves getting 2 Monday Night Football games this upcoming week in Week 3. Buffalo and Jacksonville kicks us off the first game, and then we got Commanders and Bengals for the second game. Now, Bengals, again, we talked about it. They started 0-2. I think the desperation is there. They should be able to get that win against the Commanders. And then Buffalo, Jacksonville, man. Jacksonville, one of those teams that started 0-2. I don't have any faith in Jacksonville right now to be able to get over the hump, especially in a game like this against a team, Buffalo. They've shown some toughness here through these first couple games. They will run the ball down your throat with Josh Allen and James Cook, and they just make timely plays. Again, Josh Allen has been playing like a madman here to start these first couple games of the season. Give me Buffalo in that one. I don't really see anything right now from the Jaguars that lead me to believe that they're going to be ready and up for a game like this, even with the 0-2 start that they have. So I'm taking Buffalo and Cincinnati in that one. Of course, most people are probably going to parlay Buffalo and Cincinnati together. Just be careful. We did see, a week full of underdogs. So Buffalo and Cincinnati looking like the way to go on Monday Night Football. All right, so for our best bets here, looking at week 3, we, of course, didn't hit on our parlay for last week, but Colts did us dirty going to Green Bay, letting Malik Willis get the win off in that one. Apologies to Malik Willis. Apparently, you're not stinky at football. You're just, a little bit of a late bloomer, so to speak. Let's call it what it is, I guess. And then the Rams, of course, laid the egg out in Arizona. Did not have a chance in that one from the word go. Marvin Harrison gets 2 easy touchdowns out the gate, and it was downhill from there. So, going to have a little bit better luck this week. At least we hope so. Now, 3 games that we're parlaying this week on the Moneyline Parlay, plus 127 odds on FanDuel. You have the Buccaneers at home against the Denver Broncos. Bo Nix, we talked about quarterbacks looking shaky. Bo Nix doesn't seem to have it, at least through these first 2 weeks. Going on the road to Tampa, give me the Buccaneers at home in that one. 49ers, of course, are playing at the Rams in Los Angeles, but of course we've seen this 49ers team and their fans travel to this game specifically where they take over SoFi, and unfortunately the Rams are just depleted at this point. Now, of course, 49ers have some injuries of their own, but I think from what we've seen from guys like Jordan Mason, receivers like Jawan Jennings, I think the 49ers have enough guys to be able to step up on offense. And then defensively, I think they're going to have their way with that Rams offensive line, given those guys that are out on the O-line for them. And then, of course, no Puka Nacua or Cooper Kupp for the Rams, so not really sure how they're going to be able to muster up the points in that one. So give me the 49ers in that money line. And then our third money line pick to go with these two, Cleveland Browns going home to play the New York Giants. Giants, somehow they scored 3 touchdowns on Sunday, gave up 0 touchdowns, and still lost the game. Think that puts the icing on the cake for us with this Giants season. We're seeing everything we need to see from them. I don't know how they're going to put up the points required to be able to beat that really stingy Cleveland Browns team, a Cleveland Browns team that plays a lot better defense at home than they do on the road. So Browns, 49ers, Buccaneers on the Moneyline Parlay. Those 3 picks again, plus 127 odds currently on FanDuel. And then we got another small 2-leg bet for us. Going along this ride with the Saints here. Now, they play at home against the Eagles on Sunday. I'm taking the Saints money line, and I'm taking the over 49.5 in the game. I do think this Saints team can be legitimate, even if it's just offensively. And I think from what we've seen from the Eagles defense, both last night and their first game against Green Bay, this is a team where you can pass the ball on them. You can get downfield. They're going to give up big plays in the passing game, even with all of the tweaks and player movement that they had within the secondary this offseason. Still have not seen to shore that up on defense. So I like the Saints money line this one. And of course, I like the over because the Saints are scoring points. I also think this Eagles team can score a little bit. We've seen the Saints now go over this 49.5 total in both of their first 2 games. And then Eagles, while they did not go over this total yesterday against the Falcons, did exceed that 49.5 total against the Packers in week 1. So I like those 2 together as well, plus 221 on that parlay if you want to take Saints money line with the over 49.5. So that's what we're looking like for bets. That's what we're looking like for the show on today. Now, make sure, of course, you like, share, subscribe here on the Price Check YouTube channel. Before we go, I also got to give a major shout out to my boy Ty Slayton, the folks at Exquisite Stamped LLC. Got the shirt for me today. As you can see, Price Check. We got some sports logos and things like that here. Also, check out the Exquisite Stamp logo. Make sure you support them. Exquisite Stamped LLC on Facebook. Great quality on the shirts. One-of-one clothing for everybody. Make sure you tap in with my boy Ty and the folks over at Exquisite Stamped. But that'll do it for us today on the Price Check, ladies and gentlemen. Again, please make sure you like, share, subscribe. Definitely appreciate the support. And until next time, I am your host, Josh Price. Checking out.